It's your boy Luke, back for another NFL DFS video, this time for our Week 9 main slate value plays. These are going to be the best 6 plays on this slate to try and save some salary, to try and get a few extra stud options into your lineups. We'll be using a data-driven approach, as always, here on the channel to help identify some of those plays. And these guys not only have the floor to get you by, at least in cash contests, that kind of thing, they also have GPP winning upside as well. So people with legit ceilings that are, of course, going to be safe to put into your lineups as well. We're going to have our fades and sleeper picks coming out tomorrow. Of course, our weekly live stream on Sunday mornings. So make sure to keep an eye out for all of that. But without any more delay, let's hop right into the video here for our value plays. First off, for our value plays, we have Taysom Hill, quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, who, as of right now, is still questionable, but is expected to suit up and get this start this weekend for Jameis Winston, who unfortunately had a really bad knee injury, will be out for the year, towards the ACL, also injured his MCL. So poor guy, hopefully he gets back here soon, but for the foreseeable future, Taysom Hill is going to be in at quarterback, which for anybody that follows this team in terms of fantasy, should be really exciting. This guy, Taysom Hill, because of the rushing upside that he brings to the table, is a prolific fantasy scorer. And just for evidence of that, let's take a look at his game log as a starter for this team. He has no games under 19 fantasy points. He's typically very cheap at his price tag as well. And his matchup against this Falcons team is also one of the best on the entire slate. They rank 30th against opposing quarterbacks, also rank in the bottom 10 defenses against running backs, so going to be able to get that rushing upside as well. So at a 19.4 point projection, has a very high upside here, legit 30-point ceiling. Also should have a relatively high floor since he's never scored before not below 19 fantasy points as a starter. Next up, we have Danny Amendola, $3,200 for the Texans. And while he hasn't had any massive games to this point of the year, has been injured for a lot of it, also is going to have his star quarterback coming back. They do expect Tyrod Taylor to be helming the quarterback position for this Texans team. And while he's not prolific in terms of a winner, Tyrod Taylor is a very solid fantasy producer. We saw that in weeks 1 and week 2 before he went down. Threw for over 300 yards, had 4 touchdowns in week 1, and in week 2 before he went down was looking very good against that Browns team. So this matchup against the Dolphins is a very solid matchup. They are a bottom 5 defense against wide receivers. So even at just a 12.8 point projection, he's going to pop in terms of point per dollar. He's just that cheap on this slate. And if we take a look at some of the opportunity he's been getting of late, he saw 5 targets last week, and while he didn't turn that into a ton of production, we should obviously start to see that rebound at some point. The part of the game that you can't substitute for players is their opportunity. If they're getting targets, they at the very least are going to have the ability to pay off, unlike a lot of other people in this range. So he caught a touchdown for over 50 yards in his first game with Tyrod Taylor. That was before he ended up getting injured in that game. And I look for numbers a lot more similar to that than what we've seen for the rest of the 7 weeks this year. Next up, we have Hunter Renfrow at $4,800, who seemingly makes this list every single week. For whatever reason, DraftKings just does not want to price him in the mid $5,000 range. So at this type of price tag, he's going to be a play every single week. He's projected for 16.5 points against his relatively weak Giants secondary. And while they have a few good cornerbacks out there, their 1 and 2 cornerbacks are going to be actually in the conversation for Pro Bowl level talent. Now, Renfrow, he's not going to have to deal with that, right? He's somebody who's a slot wide receiver, and just because Ruggs is not going to be in the rotation anymore, rest in peace to that person, by the way, Hunter Renfrow is still going to play slot. It's not like he's going to be put on the outside. He's just not that type of wide receiver. They're much more likely to go to somebody like a Bryan Edwards a little bit more, potentially a Zay Jones. Hunter Renfrow is still going to have his slot role, so I don't see that much of an uptick in his production or anything like that. I don't see him becoming a deep play threat. Perhaps gets an extra target or 2 every game just because Ruggs isn't out there sweeping up those targets. But for me, at 16.5 points, somebody we've rid on this list essentially every single week, and this won't be any different. Next up, we have Jared Cook at $3,300. He's playing in a very good matchup against this Eagles team. So if you guys saw my core plays video from earlier on in the week, you guys know I'm all over him. He made that video as well. Projected for 14 points. Obviously has a ton of red zone upside with Justin Herbert. And because Herbert is my favorite stacking option of the entire week, I'm not only going to have a ton of Jared Cook in those stacks, but also in standalone situations. So I'm not going to go into it too much more than that. Obviously, if you want to see my complete breakdown, check out the core plays video. That's somebody who I really like because of that touchdown upside. But next up, this is where the curveballs start. At number 2, we have Jordan Love of the Packers. And if you guys were watching my core plays video, I apologize. Obviously, that went up before we got the news about Aaron Rodgers with COVID. Now that he's going to be out for at least this week, potentially out for 2 weeks, Jordan Love is going to be thrust into the starting role. Obviously, DraftKings did not prepare for that in terms of their pricing algorithm, has them down there at $4,400. And in this matchup against the Chiefs, I typically wouldn't be all over Jordan Love in his first ever start. The price tag's great, but this matchup's even better. The Chiefs have just been hemorrhaging points to opposing quarterbacks, one of the worst in terms of matchups in the entire NFL. So at just an 18.7 point projection, which I think is actually a little bit modest. When I first ran my sims, he was much closer to a 20.5 point projection. Had to nerf him down a little bit just to try and not get him in every single lineup or anything like that. It's a great matchup. He should have some rushing upside as well. He's mobile. They're going to be using him on a lot of bootlegs, that kind of thing. So overall, really like his floor there. Obviously has a very high ceiling as well. But at number 1, we have Okwuegbunam. I can't say Albert O is what we're going to call him, guys. He's got quite a last name there. But Albert O at $2,600 is going to be starting for the Cowboys now. So another COVID situation that I have to apologize for. Obviously, Noah Fant ended up getting COVID just like Aaron Rodgers. So ended up coming out after that video was already live on the channel. But we have a pivot here in Albert O. Albert O is a very similar tight end to somebody like a Noah Fant. He's extremely athletic. He's a good blocker. Somebody who's going to be a reliable target over the middle. So for me, I liked Noah Fant in this matchup against the Cowboys. Again, their secondary tends to be pretty good at cornerback, but you get them on the inside with some of those linebackers, they've been extremely weak. They even had to cut Jalen Smith, who was seemingly a good cover linebacker just a few years ago, but completely fell off the rails. So that should just tell you everything you need to know about their linebacking core. Do not really have anyone there that they like too much. And he's going to be starting for Fant. He's been very good in the limited playing time that we've seen from him in the past. He's got decent target shares when he's been on the court. He's also been very good in terms of a per catch efficiency number. So I like Albert O in the circumstance here. He's at nearly the minimum price tag here on the slate at $2,600. And if he goes out there and even gets you just 9 or 10 fantasy points, could end up being enough to pay off in a GPP format. That is all for this week's value plays. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments who you've got as your favorite play to save some salary. Obviously for me, it kind of depends on what you're looking for. I really like Jordan Love as a cheap stacking option, but some of those premium stacks here this week are just unavoidable to me. So my favorite value play, the reason why we had Albert O at number 1 was just because we can use him in conjunction with those premium stacks. But go ahead and let me know in the comments who you guys got. Always love to get some debate going down there. Also, I really appreciate all of your support here on the channel. If you guys haven't already liked and subscribed to the channel, make sure you guys go ahead and do so. Like I mentioned during the intro, we're going to have our fades and sleepers dropping tomorrow. We're going to have our weekly DFS live stream as well on Sunday morning. It's going to be at 9 a.m. Eastern time, a little bit earlier than typical. I'm going to the PGA Tour Champions event that afternoon, so need to make sure we can get out there early. But yeah, make sure you guys stick around for all that. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that. Good luck with all of your lineups for this week, and peace.